What is up, you guys? I am Phil from PCGamesN, and joining me is Matt.
Hello.
Hi, Matt.
Hello.
We're going to be talking about Prey today. We've both played Prey, and we have slightly different perspectives on it, you'd say.
Slightly.
So what we're going to be doing is talking about Prey from a particular angle. Because, Matt, you think that it plays like a PC classic.
That I do, Phil. That I do.
And I'm not sure. So
I'm not sure.
Tell me why.
So the important thing to point out is that, Phil, you've played the intro to Prey. You've played roughly about the first hour.
I played about an hour. So I played quite a big scripted sequence that's full of story, bits of which you would have seen in various trailers. Then I've played a little bit of what the game's actually like, which isn't scripted at all. It's a big area, lots of stuff to figure out, and I didn't have quite enough time to figure out what it was I was supposed to be doing. Matt, you've played more than that.
Yeah. So I've played a bit that leaps on from that, which is where I think my sort of view on why it's a kind of a, it's like these PC classics. The classic I'm actually referring to mostly is System Shock 2.
It's a classic game.
Yeah, it's one of those, you say PC classic, we just say System Shock. So the reason why I think this is, firstly, it's the environment. So Talos 1 as a space station we've kind of so far off like media footage seen this kind of Art Deco sort of lobby thing, which is what you've seen.
A little bit Bioshock.
Yeah, a little bit Bioshock, but it's not like Bioshock at all. So it actually, when you further get into the station was built kind of like as a project between the Americans and the Russians, because it's set in this sort of alternate future.
So
where
Kennedy hasn't been shot.
Exactly, yeah.
Kennedy never got assassinated. The world was a sort of bizarre utopia. America and Russia were able to work together on the space race. Am I getting my history right? Yeah, Kennedy was shot before America landed on the moon. So they built a massive space station that's out in space.
Yep. So that's Talos 1. Yeah, and the really nice thing about it is that it's kind of got this mix of American and Russian architecture. So kind of like this lobby that you've played in is this beautiful kind of Art Deco, which is quite clearly anybody that finds themselves on Talos 1 is greeted by this beautiful thing.
Yeah.
When you get further into it, you've got more of the kind of the Russian sort of like really utilitarian. It feels really physical. And that's the important thing, is it feels like it's a place, which is why it reminds me of the Van Buren from System Shock 2 and Citadel Station from System Shock 1. It's got that feeling of place. And by having that feeling of place, you genuinely feel that there's kind of dangers to it. It's got the fiction fits so well, and like as you're walking around, it doesn't necessarily feel like video game levels. It feels like you've gone to this place that is believable. In that way, it's kind of a bit like how Dunwall feels like a real place in.
It most certainly does.
Yeah, in Dishonored. The interesting thing is they've produced it in a different way to Dishonored, because Arcane obviously are well known for their kind of immersive sim style. Lavish environments full of lots and lots of little hooks that you can pick up that read into what other people have been doing. Yeah. It's kind of a bit like that, but whereas I think Dishonored focuses on the more personal stories, because this is a working environment, it's mostly finding out people's jobs and sort of like what their co-workers they don't like and how they feel about the corporation they work for using computers or documents or stuff like that.
An interesting aside is that in System Shock 2 you get to know the place so well because you're often traipsing back on yourself in the best possible way. Like you will need to get in a door that's like here, and you will need to go a route that goes like way around here to finally get through that door. And like by the time you get back to the door that you needed to open, you're like, oh yeah, that's what I was doing this whole time. So you really get to know that sense of place. Is the same true of Prey in your experience?
So I've only played in one section aside from the lobby, and I've gone around and around that quite a lot of times. And just looking then off how the map then fits in of the stuff that I couldn't play, I do get the impression that it is built to be played in the same way as kind of a System Shock game.
Okay. I'm starting to see your point of view, but I need some more persuading.
Right, so we're going to talk about difficulty, because when you play, like you go back into your Steam library and you go back and like, oh, I love that classic from 1999, I'm going to go back and play that, and then you realise that you've kind of like been mollycoddled by modern difficulty level.
It's true.
Yeah, so that's what going and playing Prey feels like. I wasn't anticipating it to be as difficult as it is. I died loads and loads of times, and would try not and put too much of that in the capture. I don't want to embarrass myself. But yeah, it was something I very, very quickly came to sort of like grips with, because I'm used to, like when you go and play a new Arcane game, you sort of automatically assume that it's going to be Dishonored, but in this case it would be Dishonored in space. So I approached it in that method. And in Dishonored, you're like Emily or Corvo are very much set up as predators that have got this amazing tool set that you just go and you can decapitate whoever you want, or you can backstab them, turn them into ash and stuff like that. That's not what Prey's like at all. Prey actually reminds me, both using the setting as a starting point, but then with how you interact with its enemies, a little bit more like Alien Isolation.
Oh, okay.
Now, we're not talking kind of like single xenomorph and having to deal with that one persistent enemy, but I was genuinely terrified by some of the Typhons, which are the enemies. So you've got the Mimics.
They're the Typhons are the big guys.
Oh, so Typhons is the overall
that's
descriptor.
the breed.
Yeah, that's the breed.
Right.
So the guys that I was fighting were Mimics, which are the little guys.
I thought some Mimics.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So I generally think they're a little bit creepy, because kind of you can go into a room and not know they're in there.
Yeah.
And
There'll
so
be like a waste paper basket, and then it'll start at you. And you'll usually take like at least one hit, right?
Yeah. They're really elasticy, aren't they?
Yeah. All I had was a wrench or something like that when I was like you'll get a few hits in, it'll hit you once, you'll kill it, but it's still quite a stressful encounter.
Yeah, definitely.
I saw one bigger person.
So you saw a phantom.
Right.
Yeah. They are mean. They're really mean, because they've got they can shoot you with neural blast, which is like a telekinetic sort of ability.
Which is also something that you can have.
It is.
Huh?
Yeah, I'll get onto that in a bit. You know,
Cool.
you're fortunate. But yeah, so they are really, really difficult. And so combating them is done through what my next point is, which is inventive weapons, which is what I think the previous games have done really, really well, and what I come back to on here is actually the Half-Life games. I think have always had really, really inventive approach to weaponry.
We're talking about the gravity gun, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's cut to the chase.
Exactly. So that was a weapon that was kind of a tool that you could do multiple different things with. You could chuck a radiator or a toilet at someone, or you could use it in perhaps something slightly more interesting way. So Prey has the glue gun, which sort of looks like a fire extinguisher, but is called a gun. So I know that when I was talking to you, you were using it to shoot kind of like the aliens.
I was using it to glue the Mimic in place, whack the Mimic a bunch of times, walk off.
Yeah. So that does that really, really well.
We had such different approaches to this weapon, which is fascinating.
Yeah. So that's great, and it's useful as a stun gun. It can't damage Typhons. You have to sort of like apply pressure after.
Them,
But also, because it shoots glue, which is kind of like an expanding foam that solidifies on contact.
That's GOOO, by the way.
Yeah,
all in caps for some reason. Like glue was trademarked or something.
Yeah, it must stand for something. So if you spray it up a wall, you can create like a zigzag line, which you can then jump on and climb up. So,
which never would have occurred to me.
Yeah, so for example, very early on in kind of the bit that I was playing, there was a broken staircase, and I was like, well, I need to get up there, and it was the only way I could progress. So after going around and walking around and trying to do a few of the things, because you can kind of do your stuff as you would in an old school PC game in the way that you kind of want to. It's got that System Shock feel. I then came back to this staircase and was like, well, hold on, if I spray this up here, and then realised I've got a staircase, so you can jump on it. It can't adhere to itself, so you can't make them freestanding, but as long as there's a wall to stick it to, you can create essentially a ladder to traverse up.
This guy. You're the sort of man, Matt, that I would need to go and look for on YouTube when I'm playing the game to figure out what I need to do. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And then the other really interesting weapon I want to talk about is the recycler charges, which kind of fits into, there's a really nice little loop that I found, which is, so a recycler charge is like a little grenade that's basically got a recycling factory inside it. So lob one of these at the ground and it creates like a black hole and sucks everything in and then spits out what look like Lego bricks. These Lego bricks you pick up and they're actually raw materials that you can use in a fabricator machine on the station.
I did find one of those.
To create new things. So health packs, which I found were like, you never find a health pack. And if you do find a health pack, it's a bloody Typhon. The Mimic just launches out of it. So it was great that I could use these to turn my enemies into stuff that would then help me back because I could heal myself. So I think that's a really, really cool. And it's items like that. They're really, really beautifully designed. Like the recycler charge has got like a fan and a heat sink on it. It looks like a miniature factory. There's a lure, so there's kind of a lot of stealth-based sort of stuff in it because they are so dangerous. And it's because it's all this 1960s retro future, nice plastic dial with spun aluminium on it. It's got that real sort of nice feel to it. So that is quite a PC classic-y sort of thing for
Quite
it.
the argument mounting up here.
Yeah. Detailed upgrade trees is what I want to talk about now. So you've got an upgrade tree as you would in quite a lot of these sort of games. It's not XP based. You can't just grind your way through and gain sort of XP to upload them. You need to use a neuromod, which is a needle that you jab in your eye.
Yeah, via like a pretty horrible cutscene thing where you just see the needle sort of quite nasty.
So you've got lots and lots of kind of trees to go through. There's 3 of the, I guess what you call human skills, which are the stuff to do with security, which is all about kind of like your weapon skill and just being able to stealth. There's scientific trees, which is based around kind of like making sure that med packs do better for you and stuff like that. And there's an engineering, which is for upgrading your weapons and stuff like that. And that all sort of feels, it felt a bit more like Deus Ex to me, like a true kind of immersive sim where what you unlocked really genuinely unlocked a new section of the world for you.
Right, that's like a menu in its own, like all the human abilities fills a menu, all the different...
Oh yeah, and there's dozens and dozens of them, and it genuinely felt like choosing one. You know how like in Deus Ex in the old days, if you felt like you chose one, there was a weight to it. Kind of like if you chose swimming, it meant you wasted it because you could barely swim, could you, in Deus Ex? You know, there was very little point in choosing it.
I feel like I did choose it, and I don't know why. I think I got all my limbs shot off once in Deus Ex and made it into a... That's by the by.
Yeah, but the thing is because you need to find the neuromods in the world.
Yeah.
It's not like you can just grind for XP to unlock something new if you chose the wrong set. You've actually wasted them. So I think that's really important, which then brings me on to choice. I think choice has always been something that's been really important in games, especially in older PC games, in that making the right choices is what fulfills your kind of fantasy through the game.
Yeah.
So it does that in a variety of ways. You've got more modern ideas of choice, which is kind of moral quandaries. The other choice that you've got is, I've already spoken about the upgrades tree that you've got for human powers. You can also actually use the neuromods to splice Typhon DNA into your brain, should that be something you want to do. But it's a big choice. Now you can have really cool powers like there's the morph sort of skill tree, which is to do with the mimicry, so you can turn yourself into a mug and roll around unseen and stuff like that.
I think that's like, if you know one thing about Prey at this point, it's that, isn't it?
Yeah,
you can be a mug and you're maybe not sure why.
Yeah, you can also, as we mentioned earlier, you can learn the sort of like the neuroblasts that the phantoms can use. You can learn how to do like a barrier to defend yourself against enemy attacks and stuff like that. All of this comes at a cost, though, is that the further you splice alien DNA into you, the entirety of the space station is locked down against these aliens, and there are defences. At the moment, I've only seen machine gun turrets, which are really useful because you can pick them up and put them in place to shoot the Typhoons.
Yeah, yeah.
If you splice too much of alien DNA into you, the ship starts to recognise you as an alien and will turn all the turrets on you. Now, I'm fairly sure that as we progress through the game, there are probably going to be more, lethal kind of elements that they can pull out against you. But it's this whole choice. Do you go for the really, really cool powers, which are probably really useful against the Typhons because they are really difficult, and risk having to go up essentially against 2 enemies? Then you've got the ship systems and the Typhons. Or do you stick with your human stuff and potentially struggle against the aliens?
Quite permanent choices, quite unforgiving stuff. So that is why, Matt, in your opinion, Prey is a classic PC game
in the making.
I certainly think it's more like that than Dishonored or Dishonored 2 or Bioshock or any of the things that it might look like on the surface. So I'm going to mull that over.
You do that, Phil.
In the remaining weeks before Prey is out, which is on May the 5th.
Yes.
Not long.
No, not long.
So make your own mind up on May the 5th. Why don't you? Why not your dad's? Thank you very much for watching. We will catch you next time. If you like this video, you can always subscribe so that when we make more videos, you can see those videos as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.